Hi, everybody. My name is Joan Siegel, and I'm the FloQast Content Marketing Manager. No, it's Corporate Communications Manager. FloQast Corporate Communications Manager, and I'll get that right one of these days. Not today, though. Today, I'm joined by an awesome person that I've been looking to speak to about this subject for literally years now. Kimberly Garrison, introduce yourself, please.
Hi there, Kimberly Garrison. I'm a senior account executive on the sales side and been with FloQast about 4.5 years.
Yeah, you were there. Yeah, I'm coming up on my 4-year anniversary too. It's kind of weird how many different people joined around the same time, but it's also kind of weird how many of them stayed. I feel like in the tech world, you kind of bounce around every 2 to 3 years. And here I am coming up on 4 years. You're over 4 years, but you don't have a stereotypical tech background, do you?
Nope, don't have a tech background, and I don't even have an accounting background, which is really rare. I would say like 70% of the sales team comes from some accounting finance background. Mine's a little unique.
Okay, so now you're an account executive here at FloQast. What were you doing before you joined FloQast?
Before I joined FloQast, I was an actress, a musical theater actress. Yes, I did singing and acting and dancing and performed on stage. I toured all over the country. I've performed in 48 states, just not Hawaii or Alaska.
Really? Wow, that's impressive. Dang, I've only been to like 7 states. That's awesome.
Yeah, I've been to them all.
So how did this come to be? I assume you're not in LA anymore, but you were in LA at the time. How did FloQast, how did it even like register with you?
Yeah, so when I was performing, I was living in New York City. And then when we moved out to Los Angeles, I wanted to sort of see the movie scene, but also just try California. And my brother worked for LinkedIn and was in tech and told me to go get a job in tech. Don't babysit or do things like that. You'll be great at sales. So full transparency, FloQast was 4 minutes from my apartment, which is a big deal in Los Angeles from a driving standpoint. I said that in my interview, which looking back probably wasn't a big selling point on myself. But yeah, I didn't know anything about accounting at all. Didn't know much about sales. I will say sales and theater and acting are very similar in a lot of ways. So they took a chance on me, and I'm really glad they did.
Interesting. Can you talk about those similarities? I'm curious.
So I think I started as a BDR, a business development representative on the sales side. First and foremost, the work ethic is very similar. You know, I would argue it's one of the hardest jobs in the company to do that. You're on the front lines, you're dialing and every day and reaching out. So that type of work ethic, I would have to, as an actor, sell who I was and myself and my talent. So to sell accounting software didn't seem as hard to me, and kind of going hand in hand with that is the rejection. I think the quote is, for every 100 auditions you go on, you land 1 role. So that was like my mindset, my mantra, John. I would think, okay, for every 100 dials, I'll get someone will pick up and I'll book a demo or I'll have a conversation. So the fear of rejection does not exist for me. I could not, doesn't matter. It never made me nervous, never made me upset in any way. Would much rather you reject the fact that you don't want to talk about accounting software versus you don't like the way I sing or perform or something like that. And then I think lastly, coachability. When you're an actor, you have a director who coaches you and, teaches you things, and how do you react to that? And I think that's the same in sales or really anything. And so I just was a sponge with my colleagues, with my personal managers, my directors, and learned from them and was able to emulate or copy what they were doing with a little bit of improv. And I'm still here, so it's working.
still here, and I don't know how many senior account executives does FloQast have? Just like a handful, and you deserved it.
Yeah, not too many. I'm not sure. Maybe like 8.
No, there can't be that many, right?
Maybe less. Yeah, I don't know. Not the cool
Well,
one.
either way, it's impressive, and it's funny that you mentioned the geography in choosing FloQast. Is that I grew up about 4 minutes from the FloQast office, so it's interesting that you said that.
There you go.
Van Nuys Sherman Oaks is it's a wonderfully interesting and not at all interesting part of town. But
right, exactly.
you in the last little while, I don't know, a little while, I can't remember the time frame. You moved across country. Where are you now?
So last year I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina, and that's where we are now.
Very cool. What prompted the move?
I had so FloQast has been with me through a lot. Was my first big type of career in a sense, and also got pregnant and had my son. And right after I had my son, COVID hit. So living in a 2-bedroom, less than 1,000 square foot apartment with a baby on a lockdown, it was difficult, and working from home, both my husband and I. So we really just wanted to have a house and have a yard. And I have a lot of family on the East Coast, being from New York originally. So Charlotte felt like kind of a good middle ground. And about a year later, after COVID, is when we moved.
Very cool. Is your husband from North Carolina?
No, he's also from New York.
Oh, okay. Very cool. So can you talk a little bit about your progression here at FloQast? We talked about you joining as a BDR, but there's been a couple steps between that and reaching this senior account executive, consistently making President's Club senior account executive level. What was that process like? And it's kind of weird because that process, quote unquote, took basically 4 years. So it's a little hard to boil down, but if you could walk us through that, that'd be great.
Yeah, so I started as a BDR and became a team lead, where I got to help train new BDRs coming on, or a senior BDR is what I think they call it now. And then by doing that and booking demos or booking calls and setting up the account executives for success, I got the opportunity to become a self-sourcing account executive, or an AE1. And then you moved up through AE2, and then a senior AE2, or kind of how they do it. But it definitely takes time, which is good. And the way our sales is structured, which is really awesome, is they really want to promote from within and want to teach from within. So even as a BDR, I had the option to go into any facet of the company. If I wanted to go into marketing, John, right? If I found a huge interest there, FloQast would have been open to that, or the customer success side. I love selling. I love the hunt of it. And it's like very similar to acting in that way, and the challenge of it. So, and the people talking about it, people connecting, I should say. So spent about a year or so in each role to sort of move up. And now being a senior account executive is great because I get to run a team and then train new account executives. I work with BDR still. You're still all in that same family. Very cool.
I just lost my train of thought right there. Sorry about that.
Come to you.
Oh yeah, since you're kind of like you're one of those FloQast success stories in a different sort of way. You get people like Andy Steffen or something like that, who came in from audit, worked as a BDR, and is now probably a senior account executive as well. But you didn't have that audit background. You didn't really have that sales background. You have plenty of experiences that could lend itself well to sales, as you've detailed already. But who are some of your other colleagues that have taken this kind of career path, the same career path as you, and that they're really proud of their success at the company in the last couple of years?
Yeah, I think it's kind of what you said at the beginning. There are a lot of us that joined 4 or 5 years ago that are still here, which is a big testament to the company itself. Like you said, there's a lot of churn in tech, or people just tend to move around. It's easy to, especially being remote. You can kind of work anywhere from anywhere. So a lot of the BDRs that I started with, they all started out as BDRs with me, are senior account executives with me. And it's been so fun to have, I call it a family because it feels like a family. I've just known them for so long, and they've seen me through so many parts of my life. So Mandy Rader, Taylor Humphrey, Sean Park, Adam Yarnell, we all started in that, in that pod together. And are still here years later. And it's grown. There's Roshan, Brett, there's so many of us.
Oh yeah. And it's so cool to see. It really is incredible to see so many people, and how many times we have an all hands meeting or whatever, and you get 4 or 5 people getting their 4-year anniversary vest to wear. It's really cool because it doesn't typically happen in the tech world.
No, not at all.
So speaking about, let's go with your I guess you transitioned into FloQast at the beginning. 2-part question here is, what was it like? How was the training process like, and what was the level of support that you got? And then the second part, and I'll remind you if you need it, is how was that? How have you seen that evolve in the years that you've, now you're a senior account executive, but you still do work with BDRs, and I'm sure that you see different tactics or processes and stuff like that. So what was it like for you when you first joined?
This always makes me feel like back in my day when I was a BDR, but it's true. We were a startup, and we're all in the office together, and the sales team was small, and I loved it. It was such great energy, such a great learning experience. And it was very, everyone kind of wore a lot of hats. Everyone was hands-on. I learned from every single one of my colleagues, regardless of how long they'd been there on the sales side. So any other BDR or senior BDR, I learned from my manager, I learned from my director, I learned from the AEs. And because the way the sales team was set up, we all sit together. So you get to listen to people on calls, or listen to people have conversations, or, dissect a deal, whatever is going through. And the way I thought about it as like a Frankenstein puzzle, I would take what I wanted from each person, what I thought they did best, and then try to put that all together and put my own spin on it. So you learned that way. And there was structured training too, John. I don't want to say there wasn't, there definitely was. And because of that, it set me up for success from the beginning to become an AE and a senior AE, because I was given that level of respect and responsibility off the bat, even as a BDR, to set that kind of higher expectation.
That's great to hear. I mean, obviously, I think the FloQast, when they're hiring, a lot of what they're looking for is that it factor, and sometimes it's hard to. It's not totally a sustainable practice, because sometimes that it factor might not actually translate, or your perception might be off. But it's incredible that FloQast, and it's good. It starts at the top. They've identified who they're looking for and the types of personality traits that they want at FloQast, and then they're able to kind of identify like where that would be. Obviously, I come from the marketing side, I work in marketing, but there are plenty of people that might work in sales, who might go over to customer success, or, into different parts of the company. And you don't typically see that a lot, but when they do come on, I feel like FloQast, when they do bring people from outside of sales in as BDRs, and they have a great kind of onboarding program that sets themselves up for success. You can obviously you can attest to it, like where you are right now. So what does that process look like now? Obviously you graduated many times over, and you're not totally involved with that, but you do work with BDRs. What do you get the sense of what it looks like now?
So it's something I have to remind myself of. It's like when I have younger siblings, and part of me still sees them as little 5-year-olds, even though they're full-fledged adults. So I have to remind myself that FloQast is not this small, 80-person company or 70-person company. We have evolved and grown, and so has the sales team. So it's much bigger, but I think the same sentiment still goes, where they very much learn from each other, and us, the people who are seniors, we're still, like you said, I work with BDRs, I train them, I train the other AEs on my team, even all the senior AEs. We are constantly sharing ideas that we're using, or tips and tricks that we have found, especially being in this remote world. That's probably the biggest difference, John, because I would say you learn in sales from being on the floor and hearing, and you can't do that now. When you hang up, you're alone in your room with your computer, and no one's heard your conversation unless they go listen to it or something like that. So this kind of remote world, and being able to reach out and have all these resources, there are so many more resources now than when I started, and having teams dedicated just to training, or tools dedicated just to training that they have now, I think is helping us deal with the growth and continuing to expand.
That's awesome. This one is going to require some thought on your end. I'm just trying to think of a couple of different points too. But what are a couple of moments here at FloQast that really made you proud to be? Obviously, you're proud to work at the company, but like, one singular moment or a couple of singular moments where it's like, damn, I'm really glad I decided to come here and I still work here.
That is so hard. You should have sent this over to me ahead of time.
I just thought of it.
I like it. That was good. Okay, a couple moments. Well, I can like professionally, personally, both. Like
anything, company-wide, personally, professionally, anything.
So there are two personal ones that jump out to me kind of off the bat. I remember we, pre-COVID every year where we would celebrate like our 5th anniversary as a company, or our 6th anniversary as a company, to do some type of company-wide event that would take up like a whole half day, and everyone from all the departments. But one year we did it on the beach, another year we did a carnival in our parking lot, and I felt so fortunate to be at a company like this where everyone is so kind, everyone is so supportive, everyone is so smart, and then here we are just having fun. I remember going to work and we're just partying or having fun or playing carnival games or playing beach volleyball, and getting to bond and get to know each other. And another personal one is when I was pregnant with my son. This is 2019, so right before COVID. The sales team threw me a baby shower, which was so special. I still think about that day. It was just so, I'm vegan, so they found a vegan restaurant in Los Angeles, which not everybody on the sales team is, most is not, but they're all happy to go and celebrate me and have decorations and do this special thing that was just for me, for no, purpose of the company or help the company in any way. So I felt really lucky to have a team that was so supportive and involved in that way. And then professionally, I hit the jackpot. It was my first job in tech, right? And it's a startup company, and it's an accounting software, which I knew nothing about, where I was expecting, the company's going to fold, or it's going to get sold, or I'll get fired in X amount of time, right? That's the expectation when you go into tech, and what I thought. And here I am over 4 years later, and it's been such a stream of success and such growth. And I have learned and grown so much personally in my career and the people I've gotten to work with. I feel so fortunate. I'm reminded about that often. I feel prepared to go to any company and be able to deliver such a skill set from being here. But also, why would I? Because I'm at this company that is so successful. This is the company everybody wants to be a part of. And I got to start in like closer to the ground level, which is so cool.
That's awesome. So I hear from actual adults at the company that have families and stuff like that, that FloQast parental benefits around the whole family operation, I want to say, are quite generous. Yeah, sure. You were at FloQast when you were pregnant. Your son is now, how old is he?
He's 2, and I'm pregnant with my second right now.
Oh, congratulations.
Thank you.
So how supportive has FloQast been around you starting a family?
Oh, amazing. With my son, I was one of the first. There had only been a few. So I was even very much a part of the process. It was an open communication. They were still, they had set in stone what the parental leave was or things around it, but it was still very much an open conversation and wanting to make sure you're comfortable. And then when you're away. They don't want you working. They want to make sure you're enjoying that time with your family. And then you come back and it's like an ease in, and they really help you become acclimated. You have to remember, I left when my son was born and I came back and it was COVID. So all of a sudden we're all home. Everything had changed. Everything was different. And I had been gone for X amount of months and I had no idea what was going on, but I was very well taken care of and brought up to speed and could rely on my own team members versus the HR department. Addie's incredible with that. And to see how it's evolved now, 2 years later, my son is 2 and I'm going through this again with my second. So I obviously had a good time with the first. And we have even so much more at our disposal. whether the parental leave has been extended or things included. I'll tell you a fun fact, John. The first deal I ever sold as an account executive, so I was the first to sell, was this company called Happiest Baby, who makes the snoo, which I had no idea what that was when I was selling to them, this crib bassinet that rocked itself. I was like, okay, cool. And then Chris Flutie, who's one of our co-founders, was like, the snoo, I want the snoo. My wife, we love the snoo. This is great. Let's get a company code. And now every family gets a company code to be able to have the snoo for 6 months, which is awesome because it is a very high-end luxury kind of baby product. And I brought that in.
That's awesome. Quickly here, if you could, if your son could give a product review of the snoo, I can't imagine he's particularly articulate at the age of 2, but what would he say?
He loved it. He would say, and it saved mommy and daddy a lot of sleepless nights and peace of mind. It's also like, it's a sound machine. You can follow it on your app, on your phone. It's very, very cool.
I want an adult version for me.
I know. They should do that. That would be great.
I feel like that would be like that'd be quite an investment for we're talking like 10 G's or something like that.
Right.
I forgot that you covered the LA was your area. Has that changed now that you're on the East Coast?
Yeah, so I was in Los Angeles, was my territory for a very long time, Southern California. When I moved out here kind of for the first couple months, I liked the different time zones. I got to spend the morning with my son, and then I'd work West Coast hours, which most people probably think is crazy, but I like working at 9 or 10 at night. It's like great for me. And then now I work the Chicago area, so more central based, which is also fun. It's fun to hop around and work with different teams and different types of people. So I've been enjoying it.
The time difference isn't that great either. So it's nice having that 1 hour ahead of them, but also not as dramatic as working at 9 or 10 at night.
Right. I get to sleep in a little bit, which is really important. Now that I'm at like the end of the pregnancy, I'm tired all the time. So I'll take that little extra hour of sleep when I can.
It's also funny too, because you were covering the LA market when I just joined FloQast, and I came from Built in LA, where I was writing about all these companies that you were signing, and now you're in Chicago, or now you're covering Chicago, and I went to college in Chicago. So fun facts.
Basically just following your entire career, like
in reverse though. Yeah, going backwards.
Then I'll go back to LA since you grew up in Van Nuys. So
you're gonna watch all of a sudden the big move is you're moving to the Valley Glen part of Van Nuys, California, a beautiful area that I don't visit very often anymore. Shout out somebody on the sales team, putting you on the spot. Shout them out and why. Just someone that inspires you, someone that someone whose success that you're really, really proud of, whether you had a hand in that or not, doesn't really matter. Just someone that you appreciate on your team, and that you're proud of the successes that they've had.
The first person that comes to mind is Taylor Humphrey. So Taylor started, I think, like 2 weeks or 3 weeks before I did as a BDR. So I've known him my whole FloQast sales career, and we've kind of grown together in each role and been promoted together. And then we were on a team in LA. So the sales team has different teams of AEs. It's a little bit different than maybe some other tech companies. But he is just one of the most incredible people I've ever known. Such a hard worker, so incredibly humble, would be incredibly embarrassed that I had just said his name and I'm talking about him, and will probably not like that later. But really, it was so wonderful to work with him. I learned a lot from him, from a FloQast perspective and in my job, but also just in general, to be able to work with someone that you really trust, that has your back, that is such a cheerleader for you and a champion at the same time. And in a sales world, which can be very competitive, didn't show any of that. And I just have felt so fortunate to be able to work with him. I really miss that we're not on the same team anymore, if I'm being honest, but we're still friends, and we still share, tips and tricks from our different territories and things like that. But he's awesome and a big reason of why I loved working at FloQast as long as I have.
Sometimes you have to split up those winners. You know, it's time to diversify the sales team and ensure successes in other areas, right?
Exactly.
Just a couple more questions from me. Got to start by actually thinking of them first.
There you go.
I guess if going back 5 years from now, could you ever imagine yourself being in this situation, or would you imagine yourself, walking the red carpet, or living back in New York, or
signing
traveling
autographs?
yeah.
Going back 5 years from now was such a transitional time. Being an actor, I was so fortunate. I had success young, and I got to live the dream. I got to tour the country and multiple musicals, and I got to perform in New York City and perform with my husband on stage. So I checked a lot of boxes, but there was always a part of me that also really wanted a family and wanted to be able to have healthcare and afford that. And so I knew I wanted to do something else. I didn't know what it was. I found this job when I was 30. So you can make a career change at 30 years old, and it's possible. And what that also taught me is that I could then maybe do something else too. Life is long, and life is amazing. And there's so many different paths you can take and things you can try. I wouldn't give up my acting experience for anything, and I wouldn't give up this for anything. I think it just helps make you a more well-rounded human being. So I feel very fortunate to have stumbled into this career for as long as I have. And I don't know, who knows where I'll be 5 years from now. I don't know.
Hopefully it's at FloQast.
Yes, exactly. Probably. But maybe I'll be doing something, running a FloQast musical. Who knows? We'll see.
Well, we kind of already done that on PBC,
yes.
But we need a dedicated one. I'm surprised why we didn't bring you in with that process, but I think that Josh did a great job writing those songs for
such
PBC.
a good job. I think if I was in LA, I would have tried to finagle my way in there somehow, but I was already in Charlotte. So
yeah, that's tough. Well, this will probably come out after the announcement, but season 2 starting production next month.
Amazing.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's it for me. Thank you so much for taking the time. And I really enjoyed chatting with you.
Me as well. Thank you so much, Don. I appreciate it.